Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man. He'll unpack wisdom and insights from a cross-section of top quality performers in business, media, sports, entertainment, and lifestyle to uncover key elements to help you live your best audacious life ever. So without further ado, here is the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. This, of course, is the Audacious Living Podcast, and I'm excited once again to share with all of you and continue our goal of helping you live your best audacious life ever. Now, we're going to spend some time today talking about challenges and adversity and our response to them. Our guest today knows a whole lot about roadblocks and setbacks and the need to pivot from one direction and go on to the next. And her name is Taylor Lindsey Noel. And at the age of 14, Taylor was an aspiring gymnast who had Olympic dreams. However, after suffering a tragic accident at practice one day, her dreams disappeared when she was left paralyzed. Fast forward 12 years, and Taylor now is a successful business owner of a luxury loose-leaf tea company called Cup of Tea. Her business got a huge shot in the arm when she got the attention of someone by the name of Oprah Winfrey. You may have heard of her. Well, Oprah caught wind of Cup of Tea, and next thing you know, she was being featured in Oprah's magazine on her favorite things list of 2020. And let's just say that things have been great ever since. The lesson in Taylor's story is a powerful one, and it's that of perseverance, and it's truly inspiring because things aren't always going to turn out the way we want to. Sometimes stuff is going to happen, and I'm reminded actually of the video on YouTube once where there's two people were on an escalator, and the escalator suddenly stops, and they thought they were stuck, even though they easily could have stepped off and continued on their journey. Sure, the escalator stopped, but that doesn't mean that we have to. And we still can continue on and still do what we need to do. And as much of a silly commercial as this is, the point remains that when things come up, we can stand there and wait for someone to come along and fix the escalator or continue that forward motion. The choice is ours. And that's really the point in all this. We're all presented with the opportunity to take action when things go south. We just have to be conscious enough to make that decision to step off the escalator. Taylor certainly knows a thing or two about deciding to make choices, and I think it's time that we hear from her directly. So without further ado, here's my chat with Taylor, and I'll see you on the other side. At the age of 14, Taylor Lindsey Noel was a gifted gymnast who had her eyes set on representing Canada at the upcoming Olympics. She was forced to dash her dreams to the side after suffering a terrible accident at practice one day where she broke her neck and was instantly paralyzed. She spent 18 months in rehab and was forced to adjust to her new life in a wheelchair. However, this isn't where her story ends. After much persistence, dedication, and hard work, Taylor went on to start her own luxury loose-leaf tea company called Cup of Tea. Her company caught the attention of Oprah Winfrey and was subsequently featured in Oprah's last printed copy of the O magazine on Oprah's favorite things list of 2020. It didn't take long for the Oprah Effect to kick in, and business has been great ever since. Taylor and her remarkable story are up next on the Audacious Living Podcast. So I guess thanks so much for doing this. Taylor, I've been really looking forward to this for a little while.
No problem.
From the time that I saw your story, it certainly resonated with me because of just overcoming adversity to get to this point. And I've oftentimes said that on the other side of adversity and challenge, there's all these great things that come our way, and so I certainly see that in you. So I wonder if you could start by just sort of giving your a little bit of your backstory. I know you as a young girl, you were an aspiring Olympic gymnast, and things suddenly changed. So maybe let's kind of just start there.
100%. So I was one of those really overactive children. My mom was like, what am I going to do with this child? She is running around the house. when I was 5 years old, my mom decided to put me into a bunch of different sports because I was a very overactive child, and that was skating, gymnastics, ballet, as well as piano, and instantly realized that skating and ballet were not for me and stuck with gymnastics and piano. After about 2 years, I was scouted to be a part of the elite program, which means every single day I would train from 7 to 10:30, go to school from 10:45 to 4, and back to gym from 4 to 6, which equals about 25 and a half hours of gym every single day. But I loved it, and it was my passion. Around 11 years old, I was chosen to be a part of the Canadian national team, which meant I got to travel and represent Canada on an international stage, and it was a pretty good sign that I was on the right track to be an Olympian. Unfortunately, when I was 14 years old, I went to a regular day of training. My coach, he approached me to do something I'd never heard of before, which is kind of strange because I had been in the sport for so long and you see everything. Um, we argued, we went back and forth, which is not something you typically do in that kind of athlete coach dynamic. And eventually he wore me down to the point where I was like, okay. He's like, you're letting your fear cloud your judgment. Trust me, I know you better than you know yourself,
Right.
which wasn't true, but I believed him. And unfortunately, the second time I tried that skill, I landed headfirst, broke my neck, and instantly was paralyzed. So I guess that was kind of the beginning of the rest of my life, which is so crazy because from such a young age, you're planning and you know how it's going to go. I'm going to be an Olympian. I'll go to UCLA, and then in 1 second, everything just kind of crumbles.
Now, would it be safe to say that gymnastics defined who you were at that point? I know you're still such a young lady, but still, it seems like if you're practicing as much you are and you have these aspirations and goal, that would very much define you.
When 1000%, everybody, whenever friends or family would introduce me, they're like, "Oh, that's Taylor. She's the gymnast," or "That's Taylor, the future Olympian." And so my whole identity and life and every single friend I had was associated with the sport. So I didn't necessarily know who I was if I wasn't that. And the thought of ever leaving the sport, or even when it was hard, or walking away, just seemed impossible.
Right, right. And so the next little while, like sort of how long? I mean, obviously there's surgery and there's a new life for you now, right? And like in terms of getting back to some life of semblance, how long was that process for you?
I was in Sick Kids Hospital, in intensive care for 3 weeks, and then I was taken to physical rehabilitation, and I was there for 19 months. So it was a very long process and transition, and part of that was because I didn't have a home to go home to, and so my mom was building a home. Every single day, she would come sleep and stay at my rehab hospital with me, and then at night and during the day she would go build a home and then come back and do it over and over again.
Wow. So then what's next? And I mean, you come out of the hospital and then you've got to start life again, right? And now this is a very different life than what you've always known it to be.
Absolutely. I got home, I was transitioning back to high school, which, I mean, high school is difficult anyways when you're trying to find yourself, but I started my high school journey in grade 9 as an athlete, and now I'm returning as someone in a wheelchair, and that everyone was like, "What happened?" And they're like, What are you gonna do?" Because I thought I would be a sports doctor and all of these things I had all planned out. So luckily for me, I had a very great high school and support system, and I found my love of media. And I had a really great media teacher named Mr. Gordon who was like, "Hey, if you continue to work at this, there's a really great program at university, at Ryerson for radio and television arts, and you'll probably prosper." So went through high school, ended up leaving high school as my high school student council president, and then went on to university, where I got a degree in media production from Ryerson, specializing in radio and television arts.
So what's so amazing about that is it's like you just picked up where you left off almost. I mean, yes, now without gymnastics, but there's a whole new world. I mean, commend you just being, getting through high school for one, because of the new culture, right? And now, and sort of refocus and find this new direction. Absolutely amazing. What was sort of the keys to help you be able to do that? Because that's no small feat.
Thank you for saying that. I think the biggest thing for me is I took my athlete mentality and kind of just apply it to every different aspect of my life. I was taught from such a young age and shown what happens when you work really hard. If you work really hard, your body changes. You get a six pack, you learn how to do different skills, you win medals. So everything I do, whether it be academically or in any other venture, I put my all into it. And I know if I work really, really hard at this thing, I can achieve greatness. So the combination of that and also having a family and friend circle that was so supportive, never treated me differently, never made me feel other. It was imperative to continuing on my success.
And I love the fact that you don't dwell on your situation, right? It's not like, oh, this poor is me sort of thing. There's more that can be done and more that I will accomplish and do, and you certainly did that. You got a motivational speaking. Tell me about that, because I can certainly see where you flourish in that as well.
It's kind of one of those things I fell into, kind of like my business as well. I fell into it. But when I started going back, when I transitioned back to high school, my principal, I think, was talking to another principal about what had happened, and they were like, our school needs motivation. Can she share her story? And I was like, I don't even know how to do that. And they said, just speak and talk and be honest. And after that one time, I realized, I'm like, oh, this is kind of cathartic, one, but really fun too. I've always been that person not scared to speak up in class, put your hand up. I was ever the trembler in class. And I should have probably picked it up from a very young age that speaking and media and talking was great, but I never saw it as something you could do as a job at the time. But quickly, one gig led to another, which led to another, which led to I remember doing a corporate event. I'm like, whoa, like we are out here. And I'm certainly not, I've learned so much and I've been doing it for so long now. And I realize the potential to do more. And I'm excited with my new platforms to be able to continue to speak and inspire and hopefully spread some motivation.
You talked about not seeing sort of media and speaking as avenues before. And is that because maybe the gymnast goal was sort of the center and the focus? That could be part of that blocked out everything else, perhaps? Did I lose you again, Taylor? Again.
Oh,
You will try again. If at first you don't succeed, you try.
I try again.
Got it. So what I was asking before I froze, I don't know if you heard my question, but I was asking you about, because you commented on not recognizing the media or speaking as potential avenues. And I was wondering, was because the gymnast goal and the Olympics, was that sort of the front and center why it blocked out everything else?
It was I had blinders on. It was the only thing I thought about. It was the only thing I thought was possible. I didn't, again, growing up and having such a small group of people you see every day, work out with every day, we all had similar paths and journeys. So to think of anything outside of that seemed weird. Like I wouldn't be a gymnast and then be a reporter.
Right.
But I now see that I was so pigeonholed into one image because it just was everything I did. But I knew I'm actually kind of grateful to now know and see a whole different side of what life has and what my potential could be outside of sport.
Right. So now we get into the tea business. I mean, that life is progressing and you're just knocking off all these new goals one at a time. And now you've got a tea company. How did that, give me the impetus for that and how that all came to be?
So when I was in university, I had an internship too, where I was at Global News and ET Canada, and I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And after a few weeks of being there, I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I want to be in a TV station every day and maybe not be on TV for another 15 years if I want to be an anchor. You know what I mean? It just seemed like a really long path. And so again, I pivoted, switched, and I said, hey, what's something I can do that I can control my hours and fits better with my lifestyle? And podcasting was one of those things that were really ramping up and something I just started listening to myself. And I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. And so I started that in my second year of university. It's called Tea Time with Tay, and I'd interview someone over a cup of tea because I'm Jamaican background, and in my household, we always invite people over. You have a cup of tea. You plan on staying for 5 minutes. You're here for 4 hours, kind of
Cup of
thing.
tea.
So I was like, okay, and I guess having that slight business sense in my mind, I knew that if I wanted to have a sponsor, I would have to organically talk about something. And for me, if I loved David's tea and I would drink it every day, spend thousands of dollars with them every year. And so I started talking about them. I reached out, hoped that they would sponsor, and they never did. And they never responded. So being stubborn, I was like, okay, if they're not going to sponsor, I'm gonna do my own thing, and started researching how to make tea, how to start a business, and one tea turned into five, which turned into Cup of Tea, and we magically launched on November 26, 2018, and it's been a very, very crazy 2 years ever since.
That is such a transition from, starting a podcast, looking for a sponsor to, heck, let me just have my own business, man. That's incredible.
Yeah, I told you I never thought I would be here. Never as a child, never thought I'd be an owner of a luxury loose leaf tea company. But it's actually something I'm quite passionate about, and it oddly makes sense for my life.
Right. Sure. No, absolutely. Absolutely. So fast forward now, you're still now you're doing the tea thing, and some person named Oprah Winfrey gets hold of you. Wow. Again, the journey continues, but let's get into that one.
Yeah, 2020 was a very strange year for so many of us, a very tumultuous year for so many people, and I was very unsure of what the business would look like uh, moving through such a difficult year. But what I started to find was with people being home and the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement, people were wanting to shop online and shop Black owned. And I am an online Black owned business. So through just organic articles, my business started kind of just being more spotlighted. And when at the beginning of the year, I thought I was going to shut down my business, here I am finding myself doing actually fairly well, even in a pandemic. And then the next thing you know, I wake up on July 15th, which is 12 years to the date of my accident. I get an email from the editor of Oprah magazine being like, we found you online. We love what we see. We'd like to try one of everything. And I thought it was fake. I thought it was fake.
Sure.
Wouldn't you? I was like, okay. Because as much as I have dream boards and visions and things like that I have and goals I have, but if I had Oprah, I wanted to be in the magazine or on her, interviewed by her at some point. But in my head, it always had been at like a 5 year, 7 year, 10 year mark when you're established, and to be in a 1 year mark or over just over 1 year, I was like, this just doesn't happen.
Right.
But it was real, and it was weeks and weeks of rounds and testing and being unsure, keeping secrets, signing NDAs until I was sending a package straight to her home in Gail King's home, and getting a message shortly after that they fell in love with it and I would be a part of her last printed issue. So it again was something my whole life I feel like is something I never expected, but here we are. And it's been amazing for the business for sure.
You know, as you talk about not expecting, the sort of thing that runs through my mind is the whole idea of the fact that, you know, things will happen in our lives. You know, we'll attract the universe. You're talking about the universe, right? So the universe will attract
Yeah.
all these things to us, and we're never really going to be expected. We just got to receive them when they come, because you can't plan for these sorts of things. Yeah.
You really can't. And I'm a full believer, you know, the universe or God or whatever you believe in, it's truly working in mysterious ways. And I know that my story is a huge part of why my business is in the position that it is. And I'm grateful for that because it gives me a platform to be able to speak for a community of people being female, Black. I cross a lot of things, female, Black, and disabled communities, right? Where we typically don't get our voices amplified. And I'm trying to, as much as possible, prove that we are not a one-story narrative. There are people in chairs who are doing incredible things. We don't just sit at home every day. We're not sad people. We are hard workers. We're entrepreneurs. We can be CEOs and we can compete in spaces that typically are not built for us.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. You know, I heard something online. I heard you say once that, you know, you had two dreams, and, you know, one dream didn't come to fruition, but, you know, another one opened up, and that really just speaks to the power of dreaming, the power of not giving up, and just fighting through adversity. So Taylor, that to be commended. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, no. Well, thank you for saying that. I always tell people that, you know, everybody goes through something in life. We go through a lot of things, but there's always that one major thing that sticks out as that pivotal turning point for you. And whether it's a spinal cord injury, cancer, having a parent die when you're young, whatever that journey is, we all go through it. So when people look at me and they're like, "Oh, you're inspiring, or you come overcome so much," I look back at them, I'm like, "But you probably have too." And maybe if you're really young, you haven't yet, but I'm like, there's gonna be that point, and you can find inspiration within your own life because we all overcome every single day. And the human journey is not always easy, but it sure can be inspiring, cathartic, and worth it.
And I love the fact that, you know, your story isn't defined by your accident. Like, you overcome that, and it's so much more. And by telling your story, telling your own truth, you're now being able to inspire others. And I think that is a beauty in us sharing and of going through experiences, and continue to push ahead. And that's exactly what I see when I hear it. As you talk, I feel that it is such a powerful story. It really, really is, Taylor.
Well, it's so crazy because it seems like so long ago, like 12 years, but I still live it every single day. I'm still in a wheelchair. I'm still nurses, and my life is not. My life is I live a dependent life. However, like you said, there's been so much that I've been able to do since, and I'm very happy to be able to share that journey. And show that there's so much, like I've said many times, but I guess it's becoming my tagline at this point, where there's so much life after tragedy. There really is. And it's not a stopping point. It's a comma. It's a chapter in your story. It's not the end.
Amazing. I hear there's a rumor of a book coming out or something. Is that kind of in the works? And man, that's got to be another. You talk about next chapter. Here we go. Another something.
Yeah, there's, it's crazy because again, the Oprah Effect has been so, people just think that it's, you have a lot of sales and you have a great month of sales and then everything's, goes back to normal. But the truth of it is that she's able to, through her influence, open up so many doors, whether that be, corporate opportunities or people wanting to be on podcasts and continue to share the story. And one of those things is I have been writing a book for a really long time. And I had the opportunity actually about a year and a half ago to release it. And for some reason, something in me was just like, like I was like, I don't have a good ending point for where I'm at right now in life. Like the timing of it didn't feel right. And this was with a massive, like top 3 publishers in the world. And so to go and look at them and be like, I love this offer, but it's gonna be a no right now. And I was terrified to have to send that email because I kept delaying and delaying.
Mhm.
And they hit me back and they're like, when you're ready, we're here for you, which was something I wasn't expecting. When I tell you I literally dodged that answer for months. They were like, "Oh, did you finish your last chapter?" I'm like, "It's been a little bit. I'm working on it." But I think it just speaks to, and I was really proud of myself for saying not right now because one, if I ever release a book, I want it to be perfect at the time I want to release it. But two, I think it shows my growth of not being scared to stand up
Right.
for myself when something doesn't feel right. And it's something I couldn't do at 14, but something I am able to do in my adult life because I learned my lesson.
Yes. And through the process, you've also become a strong advocate for mental health, which I think is an important message and certainly a platform. Is it through your own experiences where that's developed, or was that something that you had to learn about?
Well, a little bit of both. For me, and when I this whole journey, it's been very physically taxing. My body is never going to be the same as it was. But what often I find is that the mental journey of it has been so much more difficult than the physical, and the mental ups and downs, the mental anguish you go through, the identity crisis, the grief, the 7 stages of I feel they call the 7 stages of grief. I've been through it all, and also being around other people who have experienced traumatic events, I've seen how that mental health aspect has taken a toll on them, their family, people around them. So any chance I get to bring awareness to it, it's so important to me because I know that mental health and mental illness affects 1 in 3 people, either directly or indirectly. So that's a lot of us. And it's something that had been stigmatized for a really long time. And I do feel like the narrative around it is changing, but I want to continue to make sure it's not stigmatized and it's a little bit more normalized because we work at our bodies like
Sure.
nothing, but we don't work at our minds. We don't dissect it, go to the doctor for it. And I think we should.
And I think some of that is around just the stigmas as you talked about, right? And being afraid to be vulnerable, because for some people that's what it is. And so the more, and you said, as the more we normalize it, that it's okay. I think the better it is for all of us, and that's how we can collectively address, mental health and the challenges that are associated with it. So,
Mhm.
congrats for doing that, Taylor. I can't say how pleased I am to be able to chat with you today. It's been a real pleasure. I want to ask you one last question, but before we go here, and that's just around, your message to someone who's out there listening, who may be going through their own sort of challenge or adversity. What would you say to that individual that's sort of, that barriers in their way and that's preventing them from living their best, bold, audacious life? What would you tell them?
I would tell them that their feelings are valid. I think oftentimes we're just like, oh, forget about it, or just think about something bright. I want people to know that your feelings are valid, that what you're going through is valid, and allow yourself to feel, but also allow yourself the space and grace to know that although today isn't the best day, that there is a possibility that tomorrow will be better. And if you just give yourself the grace to believe in that while also allowing yourself to feel, I think it's the more healthy way of navigating through anything you're going through. Life is completely unpredictable. Life has pivots, life has turns, but life is also really beautiful and worth it. So just as much as possible, lean on the people you love and just continue to try. That's all you can ask for.
That's it. That's it. Like I said before, on the other side of challenges, lots of good stuff, and you've proven that over and over again. Taylor, thank you so much for the time. It's an absolute pleasure.
No, thank you.
Congratulations on all your success, and I continue best wishes in the future moving forward.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, and I really appreciate it.
Great, awesome. I once again want to say thank you, Taylor, so much for joining us and sharing your amazing story. It was an absolute pleasure to speak with you. For our listeners and viewers who are interested in learning more about Taylor and Cup of Tay, I would encourage you to look her up online. We're going to do our part and make sure that the appropriate links are listed in the description. Now, there were a lot of great takeaways from my conversation with Taylor. And I wanted to touch on a few of them, starting with her awesome support network, because that was a big one. As you heard Taylor state, she had an incredible group of family and friends that were really close, that helped her stay on track, that kept her accountable, that kept her spirits up, and more importantly, they didn't let her feel sorry for herself. They were just generally there to support her throughout the entire process. And a solid support network is something we all can benefit from having in our corner. Belief was another big one. We have to have a belief that things will fall into place, and we can never, ever lose hope. And then lastly, trusting in the beauty of life and understanding that greatness is on the other side of adversity. You need to understand that, because when you hit that obstacle, we can't just stop there. We have to find a way to get by it, whether we go up, over, around, or through. But know this, once again, that once we get to the other side, that's when we'll experience the greatness of life. Well, that's it for me and another edition of the Audacious Living Podcast. Time to check out the program. It is so much appreciated. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to others, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.